feel so distant. It's like church. There's nobody up front. Good afternoon, and thanks for having me out today. I really, really appreciate it. But more importantly, I appreciate what you're doing. This is going on all over the state of Wisconsin today. And no matter where you drive, and it's not just a Madison thing or a Milwaukee thing, as the governor would like to have you think. You know, I'm a guy. Guys are good at denial. But our governor is the king of denial right now. It's just, he has no idea what is about to hit him. No idea. And it's not people who are being paid to circulate. These are us, Wisconsinites, out on weekends, at night, during the day, taking time away from a very, very busy schedule to go stand on a street corner in the snow, in the rain, in the cold, because they care. And they're out there every single day. Are all different. Somebody is getting signatures right now because they don't like what Scott Walker and the Republicans want to do to our environment. Some people are out there getting signatures right now because they don't like what Scott Walker and the Republicans are doing to Badger Care by kicking 65,000 people off of Badger Care. It's not the way we usually do things here in Wisconsin. In Wisconsin, when there's a problem, we chip in. We help our neighbors shovel driveways. We go to fundraisers for somebody whose insurance company has turned them down and they have cancer. That's what we do here in Wisconsin. We don't kick people off of programs that they need. And right now some people are out there getting signatures because of voter ID, because they know somebody who's voted at the same polling place for decades but can't do it now because they don't have Wisconsin ID. And their nearest DMV center might be 100 or 150 miles away. And people are out there obviously collecting signatures because Scott Walker and the Republicans are taking away workers' rights here in the state of Wisconsin. So what started last February is going to end sometime this summer when we kick Scott Walker out of office. It amazes me that when he was elected to represent everybody here in the state. What he has chosen to do from day one is to divide us, to pit public workers against the private sector. It's a very irresponsible thing to do. And then to point out, look at the health care benefits they have, look at the pension they have. We should take that away. Actually, what we should be doing is looking to the private sector and saying, why don't you have health care? Why don't you have a pension? And what can we do to help that along? That's what we have to do. But instead, we're taking away rights here in the state of Wisconsin. And as Jim pointed out, it's not just the private sector anymore. What's going on up at Manitowoc Crane makes me sick. What they want to do in a private company is adopt the language from Act 10 and put it into a private sector contract. And he's right. This is a cancer. And it has to be stopped. It has to be stopped. So that's what we're doing. Some people think it's sour grapes. It's not. It's not just one issue. It's not because we lost the election. It's because we don't recognize ourselves anymore. I mean, who are we? When you have family members who can't talk to one another about collective bargaining or about voter ID, when you have euchre buddies or sheepshead buddies, they'll still play cards, but God forbid we talk about politics. Something's wrong. Something is wrong when people sat down for Thanksgiving dinner. It's like taking Packer fans and Bear fans and telling them to enjoy each other and get along just fine. It's not going to work. So what he's done is very, very irresponsible. And never once did he reach out to the Democrats or even the Republicans who disagreed with him to sit down and talk about the issues. He just took over and he's driving us off a cliff. So what we need to do is we need to send a very loud message, not only to Scott Walker here in Wisconsin, but to all the Scott Walkers across the country. And there's a bunch of them. There are a bunch of them who are waiting to see what's going to happen here. It's going on in New Jersey. It's going on in Florida. They tried it in Ohio. The list goes on and on. The reason why it has to stop is because what is really at play here in the state of Wisconsin, and what we're seeing right now, is a hostile corporate takeover of Wisconsin. That's what's going on. And what happens is, in order for the private corporations to come in and take over our schools, and take over our snow plowing jobs, and taking over administrative jobs at the county level, at the city level, is first of all, you weaken the union. And you have to do that because it'll be easier to get rid of the public employee when you have a weak union. And then on top of that, you cut budgets. You cut K-12 education by $900 million. You cut money to counties, you cut money to cities, and what happens? Workers eventually will have to be laid off if we don't stop this. Because you can lay off the snowplow driver, but it's still going to snow. So that job's going someplace else. You can lay off the school teacher, but kids are still going to show up at the classroom doors waiting to be taught. And the odd part about it is, what makes Wisconsin great is the very thing that's under attack. We have phenomenal state services and county services. We have wonderful K-12 education and tech schools and university system here in the state. That's what made us who we are. My parents built that. You built that. We need to make sure that it's strong for when our kids come along and take over. But that's not what's going on right now. It's under attack, and I don't know why. Well, I do know why. It really bothers me that a board of corporate heads can come up with an agenda. They don't even live here. They can get their pieces in place, and then they can take over our state. They can take over our parks, our schools, our courthouses, our prisons, everything. And all you need to do is take a look at who's hired lobbyists here in Wisconsin. Private correction industry has lobbyists. Private corporate schools have lobbyists. Private virtual schools have lobbyists. And there's some company that administers at the county level, all over the country, who's hired lobbyists here in Wisconsin, ready to take over these jobs. We can't let it happen. We can't let it happen. What's most important to Wisconsin, who we are, is a very, very strong middle class. That is under attack. If Scott Walker has his way, knowingly or unknowingly, he's going to turn Wisconsin into a state where you can either afford to live here, or you're going to be working for the people who can afford to live here. There will be no more middle class. And that has to stop. That's why people are on street corners right now. And this isn't a matter of gouging one side to pay for the other. This is really all about just making things fair. Because right now in Wisconsin, it's not fair. It's not fair. If you want to get ahead, you can't. If you want to better yourself and better your lot in life, it's extremely difficult to do it right now. We just want fair. We just want what's fair. And what's going on at the Capitol right now isn't fair. When we can hand out $140 million in business tax breaks, which is the first thing we did this year, and then turn around and say, oh my God, the state is broke, which was a lie, it's not fair. And that money did not create one single job. I am all for tax breaks for businesses if they create jobs. If they don't create jobs, we need our money back. We need to pay for our schools. We need to pay for our roads. And the one thing that I think that would really help our economic situation here in Wisconsin, the one thing I think that would help create, especially small businesses, help them create jobs, we're not even talking about right now. And that's health insurance reform. What's killing businesses right now isn't the high taxes in Wisconsin. Minnesota's taxes are higher than ours. And they have more corporate headquarters in Minnesota than we do. What's really holding business back here and what's holding the economy back is the high cost of health insurance and the high cost of health care. So what happens is, when Walmart hires someone, chances are they give them an application for Badger Care. We're paying for that. We're paying for most of Walmart's employees. You want to talk about your double dipping? They get corporate tax breaks, plus we're paying for their insurance. Now, if you take the smallest business owner who really wants to expand, yeah, they can afford to hire the employee, but they may not be able to afford the benefits that come with that employee. And I've yet to meet a business owner outside of Walmart, who I've never met, technically, who doesn't want to do something for their employees. They all want to provide health care, because if they don't or they can't, then they're going to lose that employee to a competitor who will. But when they're out there buying it on their own, they can't afford it. And when premiums go up 30% every year just because the insurance companies they can't afford it anymore. Any raises that the employees would have seen have all been chunked up by a higher copay, higher premium costs, whatever the case may be. So if we were serious about the economy, if Scott Walker was serious about the economy, he would open up the state insurance system and let people in. Because, can you imagine 5.5 million people self-insuring? You would get the same kind of choice that Scott Walker gets when it comes to health care. You would get the same kind of choice that Scott Fitzgerald gets when it comes to health care. You would get the exact same benefit choices that they get. Yet when we talk about that, it's a communistic plot. It's a Canadian system. Not that there's a lot of dead Canadians around, but it's a massive Canadian awful system. Can you imagine businesses knowing from year to year what their healthcare costs and healthcare insurance costs are going to be? They can plan for it. You couple that with great schools, a great environment, an undefeated professional football team, and I think businesses will flock here. They will come here. You talk to any business owner, what's driving their bottom line right now? It's not the high taxes in Wisconsin, it's the high cost of health insurance. That's what we need to focus on, but we don't. Instead, we create these things like, oh my God, there's so much voter fraud in Wisconsin, we need the most onerous voter ID legislation in the nation. When the Attorney General, the Republican Attorney General I might add, investigated voter fraud in the state, they found 11 cases. 8 were felons who weren't supposed to vote, but guess what? An ID wouldn't have caught that. There are actually 3 cases, and they were prosecuted. 3 cases. We have laws on the books to deal with that situation already, but instead we go a step further. When we are in a situation in the state where it's easier to carry a gun into the Capitol than it is a camera into the Capitol, something is wrong. Something is wrong. And that's less than a year ago, that building is the only building in the state of Wisconsin where you should feel free to come and go anytime you want to and say anything you want to, whether I agree or disagree, or you agree or disagree. That building is supposed to be the free-flowing building to exchange ideas.
It still is
Now,
lobbyists.
It's for lobbyists. Now, you're going to have to pay for police. You have to get permit. You got to get a permit to sing in there, for crying out loud. That's not, I just don't recognize this anymore. And that's what it comes down to. It's the soul of who we are. That's what this is all about, the fight for the soul of who we are. And what you're doing today, and what you're going to continue to do until January 17th, when we hand in 700, 800, 900,000, 1 million signatures. What you're doing today makes a huge difference in somebody's life who you have never met before. They may not be able to get out right now and circulate signatures because maybe they are homebound and on some sort of Badger Care program. What you're doing today is helping somebody you don't know. And hopefully someday you'll meet them. And hopefully someday they'll thank you. But what you're doing today and what you're going to do until January 17th and then the election, it's going to count. It's huge. And I, from the bottom of my heart, want to thank you for everything that you're doing to make sure that Scott Walker is kicked out of office sometime this summer. So thank you.